Hey there, it's Katie Jarvis with Managing the Mess. In this video, I'm going to give you 10 tips on how to save your voice as an elementary art teacher. My first tip is, if possible, seat students on a carpet or on the floor so they're up near you and close to you. That way you're not projecting your voice throughout the classroom. I've taught in some really big art rooms and ones with really high ceilings, and I really had to strain my voice to get it to fill those spaces. So it's seating students closer to you is my first tip. I'd also at times talk quieter. When you're talking really quietly, it encourages students to get very quiet and do their best listening. Make sure that you have quiet signals in your classroom and that you are using them. One of the signals that I use is a little chime. I will ring the chime, and then I've taught my students that that means they need to stop, look, and listen. With my younger kids, I'll even tell them to put their hands up and their eyes up. Now, be aware, some kindergarten teachers teach the students when they hear those bells to put their hands on top of their head. Doesn't work so well when you're doing painting or clay, so something to keep in mind. Another signal that I like to use in my classroom is a little desktop bell. This one's actually a little bit easier for me to use. I simply will ring that and give my signal to students. You do need to wait for students to be quiet before you give those directions, and you need to regularly teach this. It's something that I reinforce in those first few weeks of school. I will just ring it just because and stop and see if students know what to do. I give happy points and sad points, so I reinforce this with those happy or sad points if students are showing that they know that routine. Another thing that I do is call and responses. So the one that I love is I say class and my students respond yes. This comes from whole brain teaching, which is something that if you haven't checked out, you should definitely look into. It's inspired a lot of my teaching. I say class in different ways, and then my students respond in the same way. So if I said class, 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 my students would say yes, yes, yes. If I said classity class, my students would respond yesity yes. And then they know that something's going to happen. I'm going to be giving an announcement immediately following that instruction. In researching for this video, I kept coming on drink water. This was mentioned in everything that I looked at. It did say to you needed to drink water early and often. So if you've got some water close by, take a little drink break, because this is going to very much help your voice. It doesn't help so much if you're chugging a bunch of water at once, but if you're sipping it throughout the day, that seems to have the best effects for your voice. I know that often I will start chugging water on the way home from school because I will realize that I haven't drank very much during the day. Also, on those first few weeks of school, you may want to listen to a podcast or something when you're in the car, so you're not singing along to music on the radio and straining your voice even further. Something that helps me to drink more throughout the day is to have a container for water like this that I don't have to touch. So if my hands are dirty or I haven't yet had a chance to wash my hands, I can simply just lean over and get a little drink and get back on with my day. Do your very best to stay healthy. If you get sick, there's an even greater chance that you're going to lose your voice. So make sure that you are frequently washing your hands, that you're getting enough sleep, that you're eating healthy food. In your classroom, one of the tips that I have done, especially after COVID, is that I have my own hand sanitizer and tissues and supplies that are near my desk that students are not to touch. So if I'm doing a demonstration, I'm not just grabbing one of the markers that the kids would be using. I have my own that don't have all the cooties and the germs on it. This teacher hack has been around for a while, but it's one that works really well with noise. I have a doorbell in my classroom, and if I notice that it's getting a little bit loud, I just press the button, and then I often act very confused. Oh my goodness, it's the sensor. It's the noise sensor. Our class is being so loud that my noise sensor has gone off. When this happens, I have a happy and sad board, so I put up a sad point. When a class gets 3 sad points up there, it could be for anything, but often it is for noise, we will have a 5-minute silent art. So from that point in the class, for 5 minutes, we will work in silence to reset. And this really saves my voice because I'm not talking loudly. I'm not giving a lot of reminders. I'm not shushing them. I've already caught their attention with that doorbell. I've given some feedback that this is not what we want. We've put up that sad point and we're resetting. Often after that 5 minutes is over, students are working much more calmly and much more quieter, and that saves your voice as well. If someone is talking during that 5 minutes of silence, we just add on time. This one ties into the last one in that sometimes we have a 5-minute silent start to art. So if there's a task where I know students really need to focus or students are having a really rough time during the lesson, we'll get all our materials out and then immediately set our timer for 5 minutes of silence. This really helps to reset and calm the class down, and it saves my voice throughout the class. Do not talk over your students. That is incredibly hard on your voice. Have times in your class where students know silence is expected. For me, it's during my lessons. I change my sign from the yellow zone to the red zone. And in a red zone, students know that I will be talking, and if they need to speak, they need to raise their hands. Another common time when teachers talk over a lot of noise or talk over their students is during cleanup. So to alleviate that, I blink the lights in my classroom and I use my microphone to say macaroni and cheese. My students respond, everybody freeze. And then I say, we are not walking, we are not talking. I've also taught them at that time that we say freeze, that if they're at the sink, that they need to turn the water off so that they are only focused on me and I don't have extra sounds or extra talking that I am trying to talk over for my cleanup directions. I also then do not have to repeat myself. If you're interested in more cleanup tips, I have a whole video about how to avoid cleanup chaos that I definitely recommend. Get creative with your nonverbal cues to students. What signs can you hang up in your room that you could simply just point to, or is something you could hold up so students know what happens next? A great example of this is I have these color signs that I use when students are lining up. So I simply just hold one up over my head and students are silently dismissed. They know to push their stool in and silently move to stand on their number spot. Now, this is one of those routines in my classroom that I have to brag about because it just works so well. I made a video all about my lineup procedures and it's definitely one you don't want to miss. Another nonverbal cue that I give in my classroom is I have that red zone hanging up. And sometimes if I hear a few people talking during my directions, I'll simply just stop and point to that red zone sign. Instead of using a lot of words and explaining what's going on, I'm able to just kind of redirect people when I stop talking and give that point right there. Don't yell. This puts an incredible strain on your voice and it becomes really ineffective because students, especially the ones that get yelled at a lot, they know how to tune that out. And some students even really enjoy seeing you get very upset and getting a rise out of you. So make sure that you are taking calming breaths. You are, challenging yourself to remain calm. Students can go into timeout, they can take a break, and you can talk to them one-on-one rather than yelling. If it is the whole class, you can move the class into the hallway, get them quiet, and then have them re-enter and restart the class. You don't want to start yelling at students because it's something that quickly will strain your voice. Just by the very nature of our job, there's a lot of communication that needs to take place. Now, we also see a lot of classes throughout the week, so I recommend that art teachers have a wearable microphone. I'm lucky that my school provides one. It simply just clips on to your clothing, and then you put the microphone up near your mouth. Now, when you're using this, some tips that I have are make sure that these are times when students need to listen, that you have this turned on. I know on mine, I have a little pause button that I use often. I'm only turning this on when I am speaking to the entire group and the group needs to be silent. I'm not using this microphone to yell or talk over students. I've also witnessed other teachers using this and they're walking all around the classroom with their microphone on, commenting on this person's work and that person's work. And students very quickly learn to tune you out because they know, hey, it might be loud what that lady is saying, but it has nothing to do with me and I can just go on with what I'm doing. So I would make sure if you do have that microphone, really use it as a tool and leverage it that when I've got that microphone turned on, that is a time for the best listening. And you can teach your students the Mona Lisa listening where their hands are still, their eyes are forward, and their lips are zipped. And that cuts down a little bit on the environmental noise of students moving things around. I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, like and subscribe, and make sure you're telling your art teacher friends about managing the mess.